Looking for your next rebuild in Football Manager, then look no further than this video. Because in this video, I'm going to give you my top 5 teams that have won the UEFA Champions League or the old European Cup, as it was called, to rebuild right now in Football Manager. And there's some cracking teams in this suggestions. And if you don't already, please do subscribe to this channel, because if you don't, you're missing out on lots of content, and I would really appreciate it if you did. And don't forget to smash that like button. Now let's get into those top 5 recommendations. First up is Nottingham Forest, who are now in the Premier League. But back in the 1979-1980, they won back-to-back UEFA Champions League and had an absolutely legendary side. Stuart Pearce, Brian Clough as manager, Nigel Clough played for the football club as well as many other legends like Viv Anderson, Stan Collymore. The list really does go on at Forest, a club steeped in history and tradition, one of the Premier League's sleeping giants, in my humble opinion. They are ready to go for a rebuild and rebuild them back to the big time. In terms of the club vision, in the first season, they're going to expand the stadium for you. Just don't get relegated in the Premier League. Be competitive in the Cups as well, which is fairly straightforward. They've got some good players in the football club. In terms of the finances, they've got £3 million in the bank, which is absolutely terrible for Premier League sides. Debts and loans is £110 million and £96 million worth of transfer debt. So that's a lot of debt hanging over this football club. You need to keep them in the Premier League. You need to be smart in the transfer market, and you need to get that debt off of the balance sheet, in my opinion. The squad to do it, well, there's some fairly good players in this squad, and some of the best players that you will have is Greek goalkeeper Odiasis Vlachodimos. He is very good on Football Manager. He may not be the best in real life, but he played 151 games for Benfica, being their number one for many years, and comes to the City ground. Other players you've got is young, mercurial talent in Callum Hudson-Odoi, coming in from Chelsea. An absolute talented baller that you could easily get the best out of in Football Manager. One of the most talented players in this squad. Ibrahima Sangare comes in the midfield. The 25-year-old Ivorian is a great holding midfield player, having been a key man at PSV before joining Nottingham Forest. Other players that you will get a good return on is Nicolas Dominguez. The Argentinian international is another holding midfield player. So Forest are stacked in that position with talent, and stacked across the whole team with talent. What they don't have is a recognised goal scorer. They do have a Wanye in their side, and players like Chris Wood, with Divock Origi coming in on loan. You will need a centre forward, but Forest is a great team to pick. Go out and rebuild them. Can you do back-to-back Champions Leagues just as they did in 1979 and 1980? The next team to rebuild is former Champions League winners is Celtic. They last won the Champions League in 1967 with their famous side, the Lisbon Lions. Celtic down the years have had some great players play for them. Players like Henrik Larsson, Scott Brown, Shunsuke Nakamura, who left Celtic to join WWE. They've got some other great players, particularly at the moment, a lot of players that are based in Southeast Asia, particularly Japanese and Korean ballers. But Celtic, you won't find it hard domestically. They are the best side in the Scottish Premier League by far. But where the challenge comes in rebuilding these is rebuilding them on that European level. The gap between the Scottish Premier League and the UEFA Champions League, in my opinion, is night and day. It is absolutely huge. The board, they want you to reach the Champions League group stage, win the Premier League, and win everything in Scotland. You just have to with your Celtic manager. Anything less than a treble is not acceptable to Celtic fans. Finances, they've got £83 million in the bank with no net debt and a little bit of transfer debt. So just see it as you have £70 million in the bank and you'll be fine from there. Although you don't really have to pay any of this back, which is great. Their squad, as I mentioned, they've got a lot of players that are from Southeast Asia. Rio Hetate, Japanese international midfield player, is one of their best and most talented players. This guy is unbelievable. Too good to be playing in Scotland, in my humble opinion. Kyogo Furuhashi is another Japanese international that will score bags and bags of goals up in Scotland. 39 and 56 games already for the Scottish Giants. He will provide bag after bag after bag of goals. And the Japanese trio is finished off with Datsun Maeda, who can play up front, can play out on the left wing, is a hard-working player with plenty of acceleration and plenty of pace. This guy is an absolute speed demon out on the wing. Other players that are not from Japan that are very good is Matt O'Reilly. He's far too good to be playing in the SPL. In my opinion, he will become a Danish international on your save. He always does. And he is a brilliant midfield player to have in your squad. Other players that I like is Nicholas Kuhn. He is absolutely class for Celtic. Comes in from SK Rapid. He's a very, very good player. Celtic have the squad to mash up everything domestically. Can you build them back to that team that won in Lisbon in 1967? Next up is a side who last won the UEFA Champions League, or European Cup as it was known back then, in 1983 in Athens, beating Juventus 1-0 to claim the trophy, is Hamburg in Germany. They are one of Germany's oldest clubs, founded in the year 1887. Yes, they are that old, and they've had some brilliant players play for them in the past. Kevin Keegan, Rafael van der Vaart, Ivica Olic, just to name a few of those ballers that have played on the hallowed turf of the Olympic Stadion in Hamburg. What a team they are to rebuild. The club vision is simple. Get back to the Bundesliga and be competitive in the Pokal. Things you can do with this club, fairly straightforward. £11 million in the bank. Debts, 26 million. So you're going to have to get back to the Bundesliga and have to be smart in that transfer market and bring out your Harry Redknapp, wheeling and dealing. The squad is very good to start off with. One of my favourite players is Bakary Yatta. This guy is an absolute beast out on the wing for the German second division. He is a very pacey winger at this level. Schonlau is a decent centre-half. You can get him ball playing, which is great for a lot of overpowered tactics in Football Manager. He will be very good at that. 4 goals and 63 appearance for the big German centre-back there. Robert Glastel is another striker that you may remember from his days at Cardiff and Mainz, but found a home at Hamburg, scoring 41 goals in 68 games. This guy is an absolute cheap beast for Hamburg. Other players that you can use that will come in very handy is the goalkeeper, Daniel Hoyer Fernandez. He's a very good goalkeeper for this level. Been the #1 for a while, a sweeper keeper, which is everything that you want to see in Football Manager if you're going to play those overpowered tactics. Hamburg have a rich history. Overpowering Bayern Munich would just be a special achievement with this football club, and making them a European giant once more would be absolutely incredible. What a rewarding save it would be to pick Hamburg as your former Champions League winner to rebuild. Next up is Serbian giants Red Star Belgrade. Now, they last won the Champions League in 1991, beating Marseille 5-3 on penalties in Bari in Italy. What a game that was. Go and look up the highlights. Some of the penalties were absolutely cracking in that game. It was a big win for the club. The club has been nowhere near since that. Again, they are one of the biggest and best teams domestically, so you will not struggle in the Serbian Super League. They also have one of the best academies on Football Manager, so new gens are guaranteed to be absolutely cracking with this football club. They've had some big players play for them in the past. They've had some very good players like Robert Prošnecki, Dejan Stankovic, Dragan Stojkovic. They've got so many big players play for them. Now, the club vision is very simple. You've got to win everything in Serbia and be competitive in the Champions League. Obviously, the aim of this rebuild is to win the Champions League again with Red Star Belgrade. The finances got £13 million in the bank. They've got a lot of debt, 29 million and 4.5 for transfer debt. So Champions League money is going to come in very handy. Make sure you qualify for Champions League group stages every year and in the Champions League league stage as the game progresses. The squad, I like the squad. They've got some very decent players in the squad. Juan Imbuam is one of those players who's very good, and if you say his name wrong, it sounds a little bit inappropriate, but he's a very good South Korean international who's playing football out there. Far too good to be playing in the Serbian Premier Division, and that's no slight on the Serbian division, but they do have Israeli goalkeeper Omiri Glazer in goal, who's a fairly decent goalkeeper in the game for you, especially for this level. Alexander Dragovic, a lot of you will remember him from his time at Bayer Leverkusen and potentially his time at Leicester City. The 32-year-old Austrian has over 100 caps for the Austrian national side and brings a vast amount of experience to this side. Peter Olinka is your best player in this squad, in my opinion. The Nigerian striker is a Nigerian international. Think of that. He's playing with players like Victor Osimhen, and he's playing in the Serbian Super League. So he will be absolutely cracked. Always scores a goal against me, I have to say, whenever I play them in the Champions League. So yeah, go out and get him if you've never had him before. An absolute little bit of a cheap beast. But one of the ones you do find yourself in is a New Zealand international. You don't come across them very often in the Football Manager, and he's a ball-winning midfield player, Marko Stamenic. He's very good, comes in from Copenhagen, brings a bit of experience and international flair to this Red Star save. Will you bring Red Star back to the big time and back to challenging for European titles? What an experience that would be, because their stadium is a cauldron of atmosphere. Just ask the Liverpool fans. But my favourite one to rebuild out of the former European Cup Champions League winners is Steaua Bucharest in Romania. Now, Romanian football has had a lot of issues down the past. This team in particular has had a lot of issues. They were split into 2 clubs as well, but they did win the UEFA Champions League European Cup in 1986 in one epic night in Seville, beating the mighty Barcelona on penalties. What a game that is. Go and check out the highlights on YouTube. It was unbelievable to see such a small side win the Champions League back then. They've had some decent players play for them in the past, but nothing too special apart from that side that won the Champions League. All household names in Romania. Now, this club was split into 2. You've got Steaua Bucharest and FCSB. Technically, you can do it with either one you want, but I've chosen the team named Steaua Bucharest, who now sit in the Romanian 2nd division, so outside the top flight as well. The club vision is simple: finish in the top 4 places in the 2nd division and be competitive in the Romanian Cup. Now, the finances, they got 74k in the bank and no transfer debt and no net debt. So we're talking small money here. We're not talking anything massive. You're going to have to build this club from the bottom up. This is why it's in at number 1 for me. The squad, I'm not going to pretend to know any of these players, but looking at the players that they've got some fairly decent ones. Nacho Heras is a player who's played around the Spanish sort of 2nd divisions, 3rd divisions, a former Atletico Madrid trainee. He looks okay for this level, I have to say. Other players that are homegrown is Bogdan Ciparelu. He has played all around Romania, playing for teams across the country. He's got some good stats to play up front at this level and should bag a few goals in the 2nd division, in my humble opinion. Argentinian centre-back Kevin Cersei, it looks very good. He's been out in various countries throughout his career. Ball-playing defender with some decent stats at this level. Should be a rock at the back for you in the first couple of seasons. But where the Spanish link continues is Robert Sierra in the midfield and Pau Migueles out on the wing. These guys are good. They're played around the bottom Spanish divisions, as had Nacho. But one player that I do recognise is Chachunkanov. He was a player that I've had in the past, former Botev Plodiv player. Big up Botev Plodiv. What a team they are. He will get you some goals at this level. He's a decent centre forward for lower division sides. I think he's just going to be good. And Steaua Bucharest, what an achievement it could be if you could replicate that famous win over Barcelona. Not only will you push the Romanian league forward, you will push this team back into the big time, something they haven't seen in a very long time. Go out and be Steaua Bucharest. What team will you rebuild? What former Champions League winners have you rebuilt? Let me know in the comments below. And if you've got any better examples, also let me know as well. If not, I'll see you on another video.